This week, we're in Boundary Country, and we're going to find out everything there is to see and do in and around the Grand Forks area. And I get to be a cowboy. I'm on the PV Cattle Ranch in the beautiful border country of the West Kootenays, helping owner Alan Pauls and two of his daughters drive some cattle. Though raising beef is their main business, they also rent out some guest cabins to anyone who wants to experience life on a mountain ranch. Theirs is very much a family business, as Alan explains.
My dad bought the farm in '72. He lived in Richmond.
Okay.
Worked at a store.
Okay, so this was a totally new experience for him.
Totally new. He worked in the drapery department. It's almost embarrassing for me to say that, but he turned into a rancher and pioneered it.
Wow.
And I've taken over as oldest son. My siblings are actively help out, but they don't actually own it.
Okay.
And now I'm in process of turning the farm over to my children. Okay. And that's the third generation. The fourth generation is actively helping us as well.
Outstanding. And we have a guest coming in, a guest speaker.
We do. This is Big Daisy.
This is Big Daisy. Hi, Daisy.
Not every cow is this quiet, but one of our goals is to produce quiet cows. They're just much easier to work, and it's been proven scientifically that their meat, generally speaking, is more tender if they're not so wild.
Right.
So,
BC's not renowned for its cattle industry. Our neighbors to the east tend to be the ones that are instantly thought of as cattle raisers. What are some of the issues you face here in BC?
Probably our biggest challenge here in Grand Forks would be just the terrain. We're quite a mountainous terrain. We're actually probably historically mining.
Yes.
And quite a bit of logging.
Okay.
So we depend on roads, logging roads, the old mining roads, to pasture our cattle in the summer.
Yeah.
And then to get them to market is a bit of a challenge because we've got to go over a hill every direction to get them anywhere. The other thing is if you can't raise your feed on your property, it costs too much to bring it in here. Right. So we're a little bit, that's one of our big challenges, is raising enough feed for our cattle.
So what does your sort of year look like, Alan?
If you want to get really, really simple, we make hay, produce forage.
While the sun shines?
All summer, while the sun shines. And then in fall, we have a little bit of a breather room. Cows come home, and then we spend the winter feeding them the very forage that we just produced.
Right.
So that's the basic cycle.
And what about breeding times? When do the babies are coming in?
So that's
I see a couple of little ones over there.
Yeah, our babies generally come in. The majority come in spring, February, March. That's a bit of a challenge. We have a lot of snow here in this country.
Okay.
So you've got to be on your toes, watching them and bringing them into the shelters.
Right. Alan makes life on the ranch sound simple. But of course, there's lots of hard work involved, as I'm about to find out. I've offered to help load some hay into the loft. So now we've got to get this hay into that hole. How's that going to happen? Because I'm not throwing it all the way up there.
No. Becky will pass it off and I'll throw it to the ground for you, and then you can put it on the elevator and it'll go up into the barn where we stack it up there.
Awesome. So we've got some tools to help us.
Yeah.
I love tools. So Becky, just to put things into perspective, because now I've got a few little twitches going on in muscles that I don't usually use. How many of these bales does either a cow eat or do all of your cattle eat in a year?
Well, one cow will eat approximately 3 tons in over one winter.
Okay.
Which equals about 100 of these bales.
So we just moved about, what, 8 or 10 bales?
Yeah.
And I not even had a month's worth of food for a cow.
Exactly, and we don't have just one cow.
Right. So that's a lot. Again, it goes back to that whole work thing. There's a lot of work involved in this.
A lot of work, yeah.
The city of Grand Forks is in BC's boundary region between the Okanagan and the Kootenays. With a population of about 4,000, it sits close to the U.S. border at the meeting point of the Granby and Kettle Rivers. The city was incorporated in 1897 and still has a wealth of heritage buildings. The downtown area has elegant tree-lined streets and is home to lots of small local businesses. It feels like you're stepping into an old-fashioned small-town lifestyle where everyone knows their neighbors. The surrounding area has fertile farmland and unspoiled mountains, and nearby Christina Lake is perfect for cooling off on hot summer days. Since the early 1900s, Grand Forks has been home to a large Doukhobor population. And to find out more about them, I'm visiting the Pride of the Valley Flour Mill to meet some members of the Doukhobor Heritage Milling Society. What are the oranges of the Doukhobor? Where did they come from?
They came from Russia.
From Russia, okay.
Yes. Doukhobor lifestyle that was formed in Russia, it was from different cultures.
Okay.
And they came together to renounce militarism. They burned their firearms in 1895 before they moved from Russia to Canada here in 1899 on the basis of no killing of whatsoever.
Right.
Humans or animals or anything like that. And that's why the vegetarian came into being. No meat, no alcohol, and no smoking for a good, healthy lifestyle.
Keeps us alive. My mother's 80 years old and still going.
Awesome. What are some of the strongest food traditions that have survived the assimilation and the encroachment, I guess, of other cultures within the community?
Well, basically, the foods that have survived are the ones that our forefathers brought right back from Russia with us. And that's the cooking of borscht. Right. There's a pirahi, lapsha, and a lot. Lapsha is, of course, egg noodles made with our flour. Okay.
Of course, you couldn't possibly have borscht without some good bread.
Exactly, you've got to have the bread.
And that's where you come into in this facility here.
This is where the flour mill comes in. This started 1915.
The original millstones are still here, as is the original steam engine that drove the mill. But these days, the mill is electrically powered, though the process hasn't changed that much, as I learned when I was shown round by miller Wallace Durgusoff.
The grain comes through here. Right. And goes in through these rollers. There's 4 sets of rollers. Okay. One is turning faster than the other. If you notice, there's grooves in the rollers.
Okay.
They're
all right. Yeah.
cuts.
Okay. Yep.
And what happens is one roller is turning faster than the other one.
Oh, okay.
And they start chopping up the grain.
Yep. The mill still produces flour which is sold in local stores. They use only organically grown wheat, producing whole wheat flour with no additives. If you're in Grand Forks, a great place to sample Doukhobor cooking is the Borscht Bowl, where I found owner Becky Favanoff busy in the kitchen. So what have we got here?
These are our vareniki. They're our homemade boiled dumplings.
Okay.
They're similar to Ukrainian pierogies.
Right, okay.
But ours are a lot bigger and fluffier. They're made with buttermilk and baking powder.
Wow.
They're delicious.
Okay, so what are we going to make?
We are going to make pirahi, which are a baked tart made with a yeast filling.
Okay.
So the outer shell is like a soft bread dough.
Right.
And we serve all of these with melted butter on top, side of sour cream. We have fillings with bean, beet, cheese, potato, sauerkraut, and peas. Today we're going to make ones with 3 fillings.
Okay.
Cottage cheese, mashed potato, and bean.
Wonderful.
Those are the most popular
I can't
ones.
wait.
Okay. So I already have the wet ingredients.
Okay.
The yeast has risen.
So I was going to say, this is a yeast dough. Okay.
Yes.
So this has had a chance to ferment, and we've got lots of bubbles happening off, and the yeast is doing its thing.
You betcha.
Okay.
And as you could see, I make everything by hand. We don't use any mixers here. We're very old school.
So you're just in with the flour, and you're looking, I presume, for a fairly soft dough.
It's going to be a little bit stiffer than a bread dough is what we want.
Okay.
Most.
How many of these do you make in a week?
A day, I would say maybe 100.
Okay.
I have dreams that I'm sleeping on these as a pillow. And that's the truth, that's a fact. I've learned how to make, everything from my babas.
Yeah.
and even 20 years ago when I first started the restaurant. They both came every day to make sure that I was making everything right.
Did they really?
And they would help me. They would help me make and bake.
They weren't
things
letting
that-
you give them a bad name by not doing it properly. That's wonderful.
Kind of do it by feel. And then I roll them out into balls.
Okay. Can I help with that?
You
Do we
bet
just do them?
you could start rolling.
So then we're going to roll
So then
these
we're
out.
gonna roll them all out.
So do you think I could try rolling a couple?
You bet.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I've been paying attention.
Okay, well, we'll see what you can do.
Let's see how we can.
Oh, you're faster than me. Okay, you do all the rest.
I'll do all the rest. Okay, just a little touch on there. So this is just potato, mashed potato?
Yeah, well, this is mashed potato with a little bit of sauteed onion.
Okay.
I'll let you flatten those
Okay.
out to look like those. Pull the first
Yep.
tip down.
Pinch it in.
Then I take the sides around.
Oh, I see. Okay, and they don't want to actually come right together.
You kind of want to show the filling.
Just over at the
Get
top.
mixed up. That looks wonderful.
Is that okay for a first timer?
Okay, and then
And
this
this one
is a kidney bean.
This is kidney bean.
Yes,
Okay.
that we blend up. You can see the difference then.
Yeah, it's quite a different sort of filling, isn't there? There we go. We'll just try and get those. So how long did these bake for?
About 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, they're pretty quick because of course all the filling is already cooked. Here we go. Let's have a look. Oh, look at those guys. What do you think? Does that
Yep,
look ready?
They look ready.
Oh, they smell fantastic.
We just
Oh, and you just pour it. Oh, look at that. Oh, now you're talking. Now you're talking.
It's gonna be super.
Oh, this looks, it smells spectacular. So we'll put a little sour cream. Of course, the sour cream's going to cool it down, isn't it?
Good job. Excellent job.
I'm speechless. I'm absolute. That is just spectacular. The dough is so delicate and soft, and the potatoes are just perfectly seasoned. You can taste a little sweetness of the onion,
potatoes too, of course.
and of course the sour cream.
Yes.
This.
There you go. Authentic Doukhobor Pidgey.
If you should find yourself in the beautiful little downtown core of Grand Forks, you'll find no better local food than the Wooden Spoon Bistro. And today I'm here with Kayla Sebastian, the owner, who's going to talk to us a little bit about your space here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for inviting us in.
No worries, thanks for coming.
This is awesome. This is really a little gem in the core, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you been here, and what does the Wooden Spoon represent in Grand Forks?
We've been in this location since middle of March. We opened up. For about a year and a half, we were a couple blocks over, about 1,000 square feet. We sat about 20 people, and there was a lineup.
So a bit of an
all the
upgrade.
time. Yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely. So.
It's really funky. I mean, just looking around, I love your menu. You've got a fantastic international menu. You brought in sort of all sorts of things from around the world, but at the same time, you're a local.
Yeah, we moved here when I was 5, and then went all through school, and then we went away and I did culinary training.
Okay.
And then my husband and I moved to Australia for about 3.5 years.
Oh, okay.
He did a master's program there for physiotherapy, and I just cooked at restaurants. And
Right.
a lot of my stuff is Australian based too.
I noticed this, a pretty strong Southeast
Yeah.
Asian influence in Australia.
Yeah,
There.
yeah.
The Wooden Spoon offers an interesting mix of foods with both local and international flavors. Two beautiful looking plates. So what have we got here?
This is the breakfast bruschetta.
Okay.
So it comes on potato, rosemary, local sliced beautiful bread, and then it's got basil that's from Real Clough's Farm, same with tomatoes, and then
Okay.
it's got the Happy Goat feta, which is from Kelowna.
Yeah.
So that's one of our popular breakfast items. Really fresh, really clean, delicious.
Yep, yep.
And then this is it's called the beets, and it's one of our main salads. It's got local greens. From Springforth Farms, and then it's got the Happy Goat as well, and then local beets, and then we got yams in there, and what else? Canadian quinoa, and then it's got crispy chickpeas and walnuts.
I'm sensing a trend here because, of course, you've got the beets in this region with the Doukhobor heritage.
Yeah.
Australians are very well known
Yes.
for eating beets, aren't
Yeah,
they? So
yeah.
I guess you're bringing everything together. It's
Yeah.
all sort of the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a long time since I've ridden a horse, and I'm still a little bit tender, But it was a lot of fun learning about the Doukhobor cuisine. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to do a chilled borscht. A little twist on the traditional and do something for a little more of the West Coast. First of all, we need to take some prosciutto, which I've got laid out on a pan, and we're going to make this nice and crispy. So this is going to be our garnish for our final product. So I'll throw this in the oven, 350 or 180 centigrade. It will not take very long at all, probably about 5-6 minutes. I want it to be crispy, but I don't want it to be burnt. Okay, so although we're doing a chilled borscht, we still have to cook it. So we'll start off with our pan, a little bit of oil in, onions into the hot oil, a little bit of garlic, just a pinch, just to create that nice, complex, robust flavor. A little bit of salt, as always. That's going to bring out the sweetness in the onion by getting rid of the acid. A little bit of white pepper. There we go. And all I want to do is just cook these onions until they're nice and soft, translucent, but not colored. I want to keep that nice pink tinge to them, not brown. My beets have already been cooked. Okay, so I cooked my beets, just boiled them in a little bit of simmering water. Splash of vinegar is always a good addition when you're cooking beets. That will help the pigments stay nice and bright red. If you don't, then they tend to bleed out and they lose a little bit of that color. So the onions have cooked down quite nicely. In with all the beets. Okay, any of that juice that's in the bowl is going in as well. Once again, a little salt. I'll give it a little more pepper. I'm just starting to see it dry in the bottom of the pan. It's just getting a little bit sticky, almost a jammy-like texture. In goes our white wine. By now the onions are pretty well cooked. The beets are already cooked. We're just allowing everything to come together and meld. Let's drop the raspberries in. If it looks a little too thick when it's dried out, don't be afraid to put a little bit of water in there. You don't want it to, as I say, scorch on the bottom, and if it gets too thick, it will scorch quite easily. Okay, while that's doing its thing, put that one there. We'll go over and have a look at our prosciutto. It's not looking too bad, probably needs another couple of minutes. My oven's a little on the low side. What I can do is just turn these guys over so that they cook evenly. You can see they're shrinking just a little. Turn that one up a little bit. There we go. And then back over to our borscht here. So the raspberries have all broken up on us. A couple of seeds poking around there. Okay, just give that one final stir. And I think that should do. Okay, so once you've got everything cooked down, the raspberries have broken up, nice and fresh, we're going to pour this into our food processor. And just blitz this up because we want to have this nice, smooth, silky soup. We're going to pour this through a strainer in a moment to get all the raspberry seeds out. Everything's soft, everything's cooked. It shouldn't take a lot of effort. Whenever you're using your food processor, just give the sides a scrape just to make sure that you don't leave anything that's not been fully chopped and pureed. Beautiful. Now, this is quite thick, so here's my other little tip for the day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few ice cubes in here. This is going to both thin it down and it's going to cool it down. And a couple of seconds, the ice obviously dropping the temperature. Now the ice is melted. Beautiful. So the next thing we want to do is strain out and catch all the raspberry seeds, plus any little bits of beet that might not have been fully broken down. So very carefully, and then I'm just going to take a ladle and just gently press that through the sieve. And all I should be left with at the end is some raspberry seeds and a few little bits of beet pulp that haven't quite got broken down. Now, if you do push this through and your sieve is not that fine, it's got some bigger holes in it, you may end up pushing a few of your raspberry seeds through. If that's the case, you can run it through here one more time and don't push through quite so hard the next time with the ladle, and that'll take those last few seeds out. Okay. Little tap. Then all we have to do is put this in the fridge and allow it to cool. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put a little bit of this into the bottom of each of our bowls. And again, white bowls, red beets, so just drop your ladle all the way to the bottom and just let it roll out. There we go. If you drop it in from up high, you'll end up splashing it all over. There we go. So we've got the sweet and the acid from the beets and the raspberries in here. And now we're going to add a little bit of salty with some nice feta cheese, and we're just going to crumble that into the soup. And then we've got our beautiful crispy prosciutto flakes. And then all we're going to do with these is just break them into the top of the soup there.
Now, when I think borscht, I think beer. There's no two ways about it. I've chosen two beers on the opposite sides of the taste spectrum, and I think that you could have a lot of fun with this pairing. On one side of the spectrum, we have the Tofino Brewery's Kelp Stout. This is by far my favorite stout out there. It does contain kelp, and this kelp is, of course, harvested in Tofino. And the kelp brings this salty brininess that I really think is going to complement that earthiness, the sweetness of the beets, and that bit of a kick from the raspberries. I think this one's a really fun pairing. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, I've chosen Spinnaker's Raspberry Lager. Now, I've chosen the raspberries to play off the raspberries within the borscht, but the lager is also important too. Because there is that density to beets, the lager, I think, is really going to just lift that entire experience and clean your palate between every bite.